Hey! Oh, that's
Uh,
so
can you see
strange.
yourself this time, Fran?
I can see myself. The issue is I can't see you. It's so bizarre. It keeps doing this. I updated my Instagram. But we can go. I'll just pretend I'm looking at you because I can see the top square, but it's just blank.
Okay, I'm just going to adjust my tripod a little bit.
Strangest
Sorry for
thing.
getting here late. We were having camera stand issues, and
Oh,
yeah,
no,
I feel
no
really
worries.
tired today as well. So this is going to.
Yeah, me too. I was rushing to get my cup of tea, so it was perfect timing. Um,
Good, good.
yeah,
So
that's so
gonna
strange.
we're gonna have a little chat about attracting available men and what that means, because I know that a lot of women that I work with, and Fran, you can tell me what happens in your world, but I find a lot of them just are settling for unavailability, breadcrumbing,
Mm.
dismissiveness. And we're going to talk about what sits behind that, what drives that behavior and why. But do you come across that a lot in maybe in your world?
Yeah, well, I would say it was definitely my pattern for a very long time. That that took quite a while to break, and I do see. I mean, a lot of my friends now are in long-term solid relationships, but certainly I have seen that in my circle and yeah, with some clients as well. But it was definitely a very ingrained prevalent pattern for myself when I was
Me
before I met
too.
Warren.
Yeah. Me too. I did a lot of dating unavailable men, but I just want to talk about what sits behind it and perhaps we can share a bit of an experience. The reason Fran and I are going live, obviously, we want to share this, but we are hosting a retreat in April in Devon, UK. And this retreat is going to help with rebalancing hyper independence with femininity, getting back into your feminine energy and attracting, magnetizing a man who's present and available. This is what Fran and I both have done in our lives. We both went for the wrong types for a little while, in my case, a long while. Um, but let me just explain what that means. So it's chasing approval, love, affection, attention, being noticed by someone when they are non-committal, avoidant, inconsistent, evasive, all of these dismissive, all of these things. And if you're watching live and this resonates with you, let me know. Are you dating someone? Have you dated someone who does that, who's breadcrumbing you, who is not, going out of his way to label a relationship? I had a client the other day and she said, is it okay for me to ask the guy that I'm seeing if, if this is going long term, if this is going somewhere? And I said, yeah, of course it is. Of course you can ask, but why is he not showing that? Why is he not claiming you? Why is he not leading and making his intentions really clear? Because
Mm.
when he's the person, you know about it, right? Because I know that in your situation, Warren basically made his intentions clear at the very beginning, well, very early on, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't know straight away, to be honest. I was kind of like, I think he just sees me as a friend, but because he wasn't out overtly flirting with me,
Yeah.
we were, and this is actually something that with the post I shared, like I felt safe because it wasn't really blatant.
Right.
But the second time, so we were in a kind of, be able to just have very authentic conversation. And yeah, the second time we met up, he said, "Look, I don't do bullshit. The next person I want to be with is the person I want. Like, I only want one more girlfriend in my life." I was like, "Okay,
Mm,
wow, this is refreshing." And then a
right.
few weeks later, I had a text message. I was like, "I don't do bullshit, BS." So, I see you as my girlfriend. I don't mess around. I was like, "Wow, cool."
And I bet you'd never heard it that straight up before, because I know when it happened to me, I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, it was unfamiliar. You know what? I had heard it once before, and I got my heart broken, and it was like one of those very sort of whirlwind intensity short term things, and then it was like a complete slam in the face.
Right,
So,
right.
so 7 years on from that, it was, or 5 years on from that, yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Mm,
So it was like, oh,
mm,
wow, this is refreshing, because I'm somebody who would kind of go in, once I got to know myself, went on a more of a journey, I suppose, of self-love and being emotionally available for myself, because
right.
everything is a mirror, right? You attract what
Mm,
you are,
mm,
you know, everything, you attract what you are. So I was attracting emotionally unavailable men because I wasn't familiar with being with my emotions, and like maybe I wasn't available to myself because that wasn't familiar. I was always, like we
and
spoke about, I was the hyper
yeah,
independent strong one. I was always the one supporting
right.
people. I was always the one for the guidance and the advice and the wisdom. But no, I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
But
yeah. And inside, you're falling apart, perhaps mentally, physically, burning out, not having the time for yourself. Exactly that. I mean, it's really interesting when we say we're not available for ourselves and we attract what we are, because a lot of people don't understand the meaning of we attract what we are. And for me, that means, well, how I see it with my clients is, I often read their energy and I'll be like, I can still feel your heart is closed. So, and I can trace it back to whichever scenario it was that created that kind of barrier. And I said, unless you, when you rather, not unless, when you learn to bring that barrier down and be vulnerable, then you will be met with the same, right? Vulnerability, openness. The moment you've got a barrier up, you're repelling men, right? Unavailable men. So, and she said, I don't want to open myself up to be hurt if I'm being vulnerable. And I said, so you've got, because this is what happens, it's one extreme to the other. When I say that, women will polarize it and go, oh, well, I'm either protecting myself or I'm either vulnerable. They don't understand they can be somewhere in the
yeah.
middle. And the somewhere in the middle looks like being open and vulnerable, but articulating your communication that is boundaried and clear, and you don't cheat on your communication. And I always say the reason um, something, your boundaries slip, is because you're not upholding them. You're cheating on your boundaries. You're
Mm,
cheating on yourself by allowing your boundaries to drop. So if you're saying, um, I don't do sex for the first, I don't know, however many dates. I don't kiss for the first 3 dates, for instance, and someone comes along and kisses you, you're violating your own boundary. You're telling
mm,
that person that's acceptable, then that becomes normal, and then that continues. And then you decide you don't like the fact that your boundary is being violated, and then you get upset about it, and then you go full circle to try and chase what you had at the beginning, right?
mm,
That's
mm.
so common, so common. But I'm like, you can have an open heart and be vulnerable and speak your truth, and actually articulate what you want and you need
Yeah.
in a relationship, and stay true to that and not have that abused if you stick with it. It's only you that allows that boundary to fall, you know?
Mm,
So it's so interesting. It's the polarity of what I hear. I'm either protecting myself or I'm going to be really open. And that leaves me open to someone creating chaos in my life. Well, they're only going to do that if you're aware what safety feels like. And I wrote some notes here, and
mm.
your this is really your niche as well. So let me just touch on this. The reason that I have come across that women love an unavailable or emotionally unavailable man is when they get the attention, they chase, attention, dopamine hit, right? Then it
Yes.
goes away and they're like, I loved that feeling. I'm going to chase him again, get a
Yeah.
dopamine hit, right? So they're
Yeah.
living in a fight or flight. They
Yes.
don't know how, and that's fight or flight is like a danger signal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't know how to live in harmony, peace, and balance. They're living in something that lives in their body, past trauma, experience, whatever it is, that hasn't healed, that's cycling back, and encouraging them to go and chase the dopamine hit, right?
Absolutely.
A
Yes,
dysregulated nervous system.
yes. And you see, what happens is the way I like to kind of express it is that, if you think of your nervous system, everything is frequency and energy, as you know. If you think of your nervous system is um, playing a tune, right? It's
Right.
part of everything within our body, our organs and cells and your nervous system is harmonizing at different frequencies, which when everything is in harmony and in resonance creates this beautiful orchestra
Mm,
that has a beautiful symphony, right? So whatever kind of tune your nervous system is dialed at. So if you grew up in an environment, or if you grew up in a home where you were that fight, flight, freeze was always activated, or there is childhood trauma that hasn't been integrated, that's almost like where your nervous system is tuned into, because in some
mm,
way that hum of fight, flight is familiar. And so
mm,
in that instance, that's where the safety lies. That's where perceived safety lies. The perceived safety lies in the familiar,
mm,
because out
mm.
of going back into resonance, and this is why it's very triggering for um, people when they like to be still, for example, or to rest, because they don't know what to do with
Yeah.
themselves, because their system's not familiar with it. It's like, oh,
Mm.
F, and
Right.
not on radio, but sometimes they what do you call it? They shadow ban
Yeah.
your video when you swear. So, oh,
Yeah.
F,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
F, like, what do I do now? I've had clients there who, first time going on a retreat or something, they're suddenly like, I don't know what to
Yeah.
do with this space and this time, and um, maybe I
Well,
should go home a few days, and then realize, like, actually, when that's really a trauma response, like when
right.
they actually rest and surrender into that rest is where a lot of healing takes place.
Mm. So you nailed it there. Surrender, rest, receive, right? Those three, if you are attracting unavailable men, you probably don't know how to do that. And you said something there that about feeling safe, sorry, familiar,
Yeah.
about the familiar. You know, when you start dating someone, a man, a high value man who's in his masculine, who's a conscious man, he goes slow, right? He'll make his intentions clear, but he's not rushing you. He's not manic with his texting. He doesn't want to rush into intimacy. He's not making plans for the future on date two, or like conversations before you've even met, right? You're
Yeah.
actually getting to know them on another level, but also he is available, he's present. Like if you've only got one part of the puzzle, one part of the jigsaw, it's like somebody said to me the other day, we're having conversations on such a deep level. And I said, yeah, but he's still unavailable to you. So
Mm,
this isn't your person yet, or maybe not at all, depending on the timing of things, right? So the
yeah.
it's unfamiliar for someone to be consistent, to show up, to do these things. So when my fiance Jack said to me, I'm not going anywhere. I know you are grieving for the loss of your mother, and I'm going to be
Mm.
here as long as it takes. There's no rush. I am here. And when I tried to push him away and say
I
he was
remember
too
that.
much, bearing in mind this is what I asked for, he's like, I'm not going anywhere. And not in a stalker way. Look, when I wrote my letter to the universe, I wrote down things like, I want my man to look at me like nothing else exists. He
Mm.
does that. And in the first few times, I'm like, what are you looking at? Why are you staring at me? I asked for that. So I had to learn to
Wow.
surrender to receive that, because I'd never had that before, you know?
Mm.
We'd be sitting in a group and he'd be listening to the conversation, but he'd be sitting there staring at
Oh,
me like, well, pure love. And I'd be like, can you stop staring at me? It's really uncomfortable. I asked for that. I couldn't receive it. It was like ridiculous. So, you know, surrender, receive, feeling safe to receive. And it will feel unfamiliar, won't it?
yeah.
And I'm sure you've had experiences of that also, right?
Yeah. And I think going back to something you were talking about one of your clients who was like, I don't want to feel vulnerable or open my heart for the fear of that rejection or being hurt. And it goes back to control as well,
Yeah,
having to, like, I suppose, surrender, letting go of control, because there are no guarantees either. But
no.
there's if we don't give ourselves permission to open, I suppose, our
Or even
hearts, or
practice,
yeah,
practice doing it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, then you you can't you can't you can't always know the outcome of
Mm.
anything in life. So it comes back to that letting go of control. But yeah, so
I will say though, the reason why people stay in trauma responses is because they can predict the outcome, right?
mm, mm,
So they
mm,
go for unavailable men because they can predict they're not going to commit. Because if the moment they committed, they might be like, whoa, hang on a second, I don't know how to deal with this. So perhaps from childhood, they're used to a dismissive parent, an unavailable parent, a parent
yeah,
that was busy, that couldn't be there for them. It's not always like a huge trauma response.
yeah,
Trauma from a child's perspective, an underdeveloped mind, can be perceived like mum going out to work can be perceived as abandonment, right?
yeah,
It can
yeah,
be perceived as dismissal, right? Handing them to a minder rather than taking care of them for a need to earn, they will perceive that as kind of just being like abandoned and left on their own, right? And so if you weren't able to fulfill your own needs, if you weren't taught how to communicate and ask for your needs to be met and know what that looks like, then sorry, I don't know what these things keep popping up
I
for.
know,
There's a little thumbs up that
it's
pops up that you don't
it's so
see. No.
annoying. I wish I could
So
see.
funny. So if you don't grow through that and you don't learn what that is and how to communicate that for yourself, if you've never been taught that,
Yeah,
you will put up with being dismissed, ignored, having inconsistent behavior, and you'll stay quiet. But what
yeah,
you will do is you'll try harder to get noticed. You will love
mm,
harder. You'll be more available. You'll do things for them, and they'll still continue that behavior. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? So
yeah,
there's almost like that's the certainty that you might
yeah.
have if you haven't done the healing work. Again, like you said, that's the familiar,
Yes, and
right? The
that's to keep
dismiss.
you
Yeah.
safe, even if it's shit. So you'll stick
Yes,
you'll stick
exactly.
with it because you don't know any
Right.
better. And that's why the inner work and the, I suppose, the the inner journey is so important. And yeah, that's, if you don't have your emotional needs met from a young age, then you don't know any different in that crucial kind of period of time of emotional development. So yeah, that was certainly my one. I would constantly be um ghosted,
Yeah.
just like not hear from people, or they just really flaky. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't know, oh sorry, I didn't know we were meeting up today. It's like, or
Oh,
I
that,
just
yeah,
wouldn't hear from
nonsense.
them. And
Yeah.
then it would be like weeks later, they'd be like, oh yeah, sorry, we didn't meet up 3 weeks
E-
ago. It's like, what?
Exactly.
So then,
Exactly.
and I think also a big thing for me was conflict.
Mm.
So avoidance of conflict. It's like, I don't, if I do something wrong, like they're off. They're gonna go, or I just won't hear from them. Like, because we didn't do conflict in the home, I suppose. Like, it was like, I guess I suppose I didn't learn how to work through conflict in a healthy way. So it's like, yeah, you would. I remember that with Warren. Whenever we had, if maybe the first few conflicts we'd have, be like, he's gonna go, that's it. But and that was a change. That was a
Mm.
shift, because it wasn't. If that's where the consistency came in. I was like, oh,
And
this is
that's really
unfamiliar.
important because
I was expecting you to like take off
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
just go
That's exactly what would
through.
happen for me. I'd be dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
That
there
I
there
think,
was a
yeah.
comment.
I've just seen the comment there. Are you looking at the same one as me? I'll just read it out. So Becky,
Yeah,
she says,
Becky. Hey, Becky.
I recently went on a few dates. In the second date, he asked to kiss me, and then I got a message when he got home saying he'd had a lovely time. The next 3 days, he seemed more distant, so I called him up on it, and he then said his nan had been unwell. So I said, okay, fair enough, but you could have communicated this with me. He then just called things off. You know, the thing is, a woman should never, ever have to follow up with a man, ever. I know that might sound a bit like radical and out there, but if the man is invested and he's made his intentions clear, it doesn't matter what's going on, what I'm gonna swear, what shit show's going on, he's gonna message. Even if the message is, I'm going through something, I'll connect with you in a day or so, right? He's going
Mm,
to honor you that way. And what I do know from when Jack was invested was that he never let any time pass. There was a time where I just thought it was a bit much. I was grieving as well. I ignored him for a week. He rocked up at my place and said, "What is going on?" He turned up and he's, "I'm not having this. I've told you I'm invested. Why are you ignoring me?" He wanted answers, right? And I was, part of me was like, "Oh, can you just go away?" And the other part of me was like, I'm secretly really impressed by this behavior because it never
oh,
happened before, right? So, like, he not even to this day, not once does he ever leave me hanging, right?
mm,
And if he cannot speak, he will excuse himself from the situation and say, I need to send a quick message to my fiance, right? This
ah,
is what we're talking about when men show up. But it
mm,
is, we should never have to reach out to a man to affirm their interest in us, right?
mm.
Ever. So I actually got to a place in time when I was going on my 51st dates. If they didn't respond, I took that as not interested. And then, like, three days later, like you say, they'd be like, hey, sexy message. And I'd be like, that's not what I'm here for. If you haven't got the respect to show up like a man, you can walk away. But the
Mm,
thing is, because we're so used to the unfamiliar, sorry, the familiar being dismissal, rejection, we will go and track that until we heal it, don't
yeah,
we?
because like you were saying before, it can be this dopamine hit, and that can also be mistaken for this kind of intense sort of
It's like a spike,
chemistry
isn't it?
love.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just actually there's this really there's some trauma bonding going on, whereas say like consistency is more and being with a safe man, I suppose, is yeah, you might have that at the beginning, but there's more of a consistency. There's more of a like there's not this like massive like dopamine up and down roller coaster.
I don't know about you, but I know with Jack that there was a hum in the background. There was a low level hum that was like, I'm into this guy, but I wasn't really overt about it. Right. And when my trauma was unhealed, I'd be like, oh my God, he's so good. We talk about everything. Da, 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 da. There wasn't any of that. There was just a quiet recognition with Jack that this feels really good. You
Mm.
know, everyone was probing me for more information, like, how's it going? What's going on in your life? And I wasn't openly just sharing it because I was just like, this is different. I need to just digest this. I need to feel into this because it was nothing like I'd had before. You know, the level of showing up that he gave me, that he still does, you know,
Mm.
it was just like nothing. I'd never seen it to that extent around me either, which was really interesting. I'd seen glimpses of really beautiful relationships and how men had women's backs and how they were providers and in their masculine energy, but never to this level. You know, it was
Oh.
really interesting. But that was also me being really open, literally saying to the universe, this is what I want, but also show me what else I can have in this relationship
Mm.
that I haven't
Mm.
already thought of that is really aligned. And then that's why I say, not only did I get everything I asked for on the list, pretty much, I got a whole load of stuff I didn't even know I needed. And I was like,
Nice.
oh, bring bring in the goodies. This is amazing. And it's interesting because somebody said to me on, you'll find it on my comment somewhere. Somebody said, uh I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of "you're gloating in your situation," and
What?
I thought, oh, okay, this is success. This is not unique to me or to Fran. It's accessible to all
Mm,
of you, right? It
mm,
just takes effort on your side to decide you want to do some of the work, right? And I've seen women attract really, really masculine, high value men when they've only just started on the journey of doing the work. But the men
mm.
are really, really present, right? And so I saw that comment and I thought, oh, that's a shame because I'm not gloating at all. But what I do know is it took me 52 years to get here. And because I've done it and it's taken me that long, I've learnt the shortcuts on how to do it. So I'm here to show you, right? And exactly the same with you. You get to the age that you're at. You may have gone to taken some windy paths, but
A
both
lot.
you and I now can condense it and say, okay, here's the quick version, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it takes as long as it takes, but what I'm saying is that we can see all the places and the ways that we were distracted from our healing in order to get this. If I had not stayed in the relationships longer than I should have done, if I'd listened more, I would have probably had this a lot sooner, but I'm really stubborn. It took
Okay.
me a lot. Like, I wanted to prove to myself, like, I was like, I need to try everything to know it's a failure. Meanwhile, I'm getting dismissed every single day, right? Or there was this other thing about not falling in love with the idea of a man and rather waiting for them to show you who they are. So we put the rose tinted glasses on and we have a perception. We fall in love with their potential, what they
Yeah.
could be, the
Yeah.
idea of him. Because on the first few dates, he looks great and he's presenting all the right things. But in my experience of working with women, it takes about 3 to 6 months for the true colours of a man to come out. They can't sustain it. They're not good actors. They can't keep it up,
That's
and
why I could never get past 3 months for about
yeah,
10 years.
there you go. There you go. You saw the true colours, right?
Yeah,
It takes that long.
3 months. It was just like, okay, this is just, yeah,
Yeah,
flaking out. Fizzling
yeah.
out, will just disappear. And it really, I think relationships, even now in relationship for 7 years, is the biggest mirror. It's still
The
will always
challenge. Yeah,
mirror like where my unhealed shit is,
yeah. Me
where the
too.
wounds are, and I think like the journey of dating, relationship, it still continues, is the biggest mirror to your deepest, I suppose, self. And I'm grateful for that period of time of dating, of always being the single one, of having the pattern of the emotionally unavailable man, because at the end of the day the common denominator was
Mm.
me, and it made me have to really look within myself, and I suppose, yeah, heal those patterns and be face why it was so hard to be
Mm.
vulnerable.
Mm.
And going back to the first thing that you said, I think a big thing for me as then a hyper independent strong woman is vulnerability. And so, because it wasn't familiar, and so, but at the end of the day, so having your kind of your heartbroken, I suppose, over and over
Yeah,
again, and being inflated, ultimately led me to open my heart, to be vulnerable, to
yeah.
feel, because really underneath that, the reason you attract unavailable men is a fear of rejection, fear of getting hurt, all of these things, being accepted. But I think the journey of then for me starting to give that to myself, accepting myself, and um, so then if I was hurt, I was able to, I suppose, not project it out so much to the other person, or no, sorry, not
Mm.
project it so much onto myself. Well, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I enough? Because I was already affirming, I started to affirm that to myself and be like, okay, well, isn't, it's not right, and that's okay. I'm glad I know now, rather than wait 2 years later.
Mm.
And then they'll be able to sort of move on if that person was flaky. Okay, you know what? It's not me now because I know who I am. I know what my standards are. I know what my values are. And I'll have that conversation. And this is exactly what happened actually before I met Warren. I was dating someone. It wasn't really going anywhere after a couple of months. It's like, okay, where do you see this going? And then he was like, oh, I don't know, just take a day by day. And I started to check out. So I was like, okay, cool. You know what? It's not a reflection on me. I know who I am. I know my values. So we're gonna have a conversation because this isn't this I do know what I want. And if we can't
Mm.
meet that, that's cool. But I'm moving forward. And it was
Mm.
less
And
personal.
that's really hard to do because there's so many women that don't know how to communicate. I was asked another question as well when this person was dating someone else, and she said, I can't remember whether it was her partner or herself asked for it, but somebody asked for more. Oh, I think it was him. He asked for, he wanted to be more vulnerable, and she said, what do you do when someone says that? I'm like, well, don't assume you know what vulnerability is, because your version is very different from theirs. So ask them, what does that look like? What does vulnerability look like? And that question back is a really good question, because at the beginning with Jack, he was like, I'm really affirming my intentions with you and I want to be with you. And I said, but what does that look like to you? How available can you be? And it wasn't me going on to dreamland. It was like, how realistically can we realistically have this relationship? Are you giving me enough time? Because quality time is really important to me. It's also
Mm,
something that I wasn't very good at giving myself. So I had to learn to give myself quality time and not burn out, and also know what that looks like with him,
mm,
rather than having a rushed date here or there, or always being social, because having downtime with your person is just as important about than being out in
mm,
places. And that's
mm,
another thing, because you can get dating burnout by just being in, oh, let's go here, let's go there, let's do that, let's do this, and not actually getting down with each other, like inside each other. And I mean by inside each other's heads, and really understanding each other. You're just moving forward all the time. But I
yeah.
just wanted to just kind of recap, because loads of people have just joined. We're just talking about how you can attract an available man. And we're just talking about the availability that we have for ourselves and what we're used to, what's our familiar. But in case you are wondering what that might look like, sorry, I just made loads of notes before we came on. That's why I'm looking down.
I can't.
Um,
I wish I could see. I'm just looking at this
Oh, you just look at
blank,
okay. I just thought I'd
dark
scribble down notes because I've had a
square
long day,
above
and I
my
was
head.
like, yeah, let me just get it out. So it's like when you're going over and beyond in a relationship to keep that man interested, right? He should already be interested. You shouldn't have to work harder to
Mm,
keep his interest. I know that I dated someone for far too long, and he was always interested in the idea of me, like, because I look like a trophy, right? So for him, and if I didn't live up to the trophy ideal, he wasn't interested. So I had to
oh,
work hard to be the trophy, right?
oh
So
gosh.
this was a whole other thing. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This doesn't even make me happy. I'm wearing things I don't like. I'm morphing into a personality I don't like. So it's like going over and beyond. Um, Oh, there we go. Do girls get attracted to 50 plus men, or is this a myth? Well, it depends what you mean about girls. I would say if young women are attracted to much older men, they've not resolved their daddy issues. I'm going to just call it out. You could, Fran, you can add to it.
Yeah,
Equally,
yeah.
you cannot sexualize a man that is of your father's age, or the gap is too
Mm,
big. There's some issues going on there. Equally, if you have And if the older man is dating younger, he's sexualizing someone that might be his daughter's age or something. There is
Mm.
something up with that. And some people will be convinced that, large dating gaps work, age gaps, sorry. Maybe, but for me, that doesn't feel healthy to be
Mm.
dating way older or way younger. Sorry, I've digressed there, but let me go back. So
Nicely said.
going over, it was just that comment. So going over and beyond to gain attention, accepting behavior that doesn't align with you and just affirming it by accepting it because you're making it normal.
Mm.
Going for the spikes. Thanks, that seems a genuine answer. It is, I hope. The spikes, the dopamine hits, God, this is really good. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to really revel in it. And then it turns into something that's not so good, but you're holding on to the spike you had before, the extreme highs and lows, um, believing that they will change. Look, if someone's not giving you a commitment to change and effort right there, they're not going to change. Simple
Mm.
things, right? If there is something that Jack doesn't like in me or something that's irking him, we'll sit down and I'll say, okay, this feels valuable enough for me to change, so therefore I will. Same, likewise, we talk it out there and then we move on. We did that from the beginning.
Mm.
So believing someone's going to change if they're not already showing you that they're inputting the work, that's unavailable right there, okay?
Or or
Hoping
that
they're
you
gonna love, sorry.
sorry, or that you think you can change them as well.
Yes,
Like with
exactly.
I sorry to cut you in there.
No,
In
no,
fact,
no, go.
so okay, so I'll share now. So I had a client who would have these relationships where actually they weren't relationships, they were situationships where the guy would always say it was like an infatuation basically, and but he would never be ready for a relationship and or didn't want a relationship, and there was this infatuation, intensity, chemistry, and this client was always the one who thought, but he'll change. I can make him want the relationship. And this would go on for like a year or two. And then she'd pull away from it eventually, and then he'd get in a relationship with
Mm,
somebody.
mm,
And she'd be like,
mm.
oh my gosh, and affirmed that then she wasn't enough to be the one to change him for the relationship.
Yeah.
And and then she would meet somebody again, and it would be the same situation, just a different
Mm,
name. Like,
yeah. That
mm,
happens a lot. Look, you when you try and change someone, it's not aligned to them. It's never going to stick. If it comes from them, they're putting the energy and the effort in the forefront. So, Alicia, you've asked, what if they want to change once you leave and are taking a break? Do you wait or move on? It depends if they're actually showing you they're implementing the change, and why did it take a breakup for it to highlight that something needed to change? So. For me, that would be maybe a lack of communication, a lack of honest talking, being open, really expressing what your needs are and what's important. um, excuse me, if it's taken you to leave for them to realize, there will have been a communication issue for sure somewhere there, a lack of
mm,
understanding, a lack of you both meeting in the middle for this is equally what you want. Because when there is unavailability, one person is pushing and the other person is just like, nah, I'll just kind of do it when I want to do it, right? So do you wait or do you move on? That is really dependent upon whether they're doing it from a genuine place and they can sustain it.
mm,
Because if they can't, they're going to fall back into the unavailability pattern, right? Straight away,
mm,
right? For
mm,
sure. So I would just say that also you can't waiting for change and hoping that they're going to love you the way you love them or the way that you've got invested in them is a really difficult one. You can't hope someone's going to love you. They're going to show you with their actions, their presence, the way they show up for you. You can't sit and wait and hope that they're going to go there,
mm,
right? If they're not even invested in the beginning by the consistency, that's not going to come 3 6 months later, 2 years later. You'll still be sitting there waiting for something.
mm,
That's like breadcrumbing. It's just giving you a little bit, giving you a little bit, and you're waiting to take it. So it's that may turn you into also an anxious attachment type. You know, when you're treading on eggshells and you don't know what you can say, what you can't, why aren't they texting? They said they'd call, they haven't called. I can see them online, they're not messaging me. You know, you create a whole story in your head
Right.
and you go off on one, don't you? Again,
Yeah.
that is you not feeling secure in yourself. So as Fran said, you attract what you are. So if you're not secure in yourself, you're not going to attract a secure
Mm,
man because you don't know
mm,
how to hold a secure man. You are checking out, so you'll attract an unavailable man. So
mm.
all of these things about creating more presence and time for yourself, for sure, is going to, you know, if you're present for yourself, you've got your own back and you're there without being controlling. Because something you said at the beginning, when you said we said receiving and surrender, that's feminine energy right there,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
when you're
Yeah.
when you're sitting there on in your wholeness and you're radiating the fact that you can surrender and not feel anxious about what's coming your way because you're not pushing, you're not in control, you're not manipulating, you're not trying to change someone, you're not trying to make someone be something they're not, you're not pinning your hopes on something that may be something or a project. When you're like, this is my value, I'm precious, this is what I'm radiating, I'm ready to receive it, that's going to come your, that's feminine energy, it's going to come your way. And I know that I often say that the more you say no to the things you don't want, the more big yeses are going to come your way, the more comes in with your
Yeah.
alignment. So you've
Very
got to,
true.
yeah, and you've got to let go of what isn't good for you to open up to something that is aligned, that is meant for you. But you're so busy hanging on to the little bits that don't create, that aren't representative of a whole available man, that you can't allow something better to come in.
Mm,
And for some
mm,
people, it's better to be with someone than no one and just put up with them.
mm,
You,
mm.
you
Yeah.
know,
And
it's just not, you know, it's
no
not
to
going to get
breadcrumbs.
you what you want.
And also, I think, as we touched on before in our last video, that being in the feminine energy, that of receiving and surrender means creating safety for yourself,
Mm,
because the feminine energy only feels safe to come through for most people. Let's say with women, we know that, you know, men and women have both the feminine and the masculine energy, but saying with women, women will feel safe to be in the feminine when they feel safe, basically.
yeah.
So that means harnessing, say, what does it feel like to, you know, for yourself? Well, how does your body feel safe? So starting to elicit, I suppose, or like feel into, what does it feel like for my system to feel calm, to
Mm,
feel grounded, to feel present? Because then that's when the feminine energy is safe to kind of express and be in that zone of receptivity. That's the reason we swing into that unhealthy masculine, because it's a feeling of, oh, I've got to do it all, so I'll control and push my way through and force. There's no space for the feminine to surrender into that or to
mm,
soften, because there's an element of not feeling
mm,
safe at
And
on
there
top
is also a thing of
level.
if I pull back, then I become subservient or I become too vulnerable or
Yeah,
femininity is weak. And that is nonsense because there is so much power and grace in surrender. You
yeah,
invite in so much more than you think you can have every
yeah.
time.
And it's a balance, and that's
Mm,
why the divine masculine within ourselves is so important as well, because that divine masculine creates your own energetic boundary, which is what I'll be teaching on the retreat, how to create that, assert your energetic boundary by shifting your physiology, so you create presence and groundedness, and you connect to your power, so then that the feminine energy can radiate outwards in that expression and the flow and the creativity, because we need both
yeah,
both
100%, 100%. So I'd love to hear if you've joined us and you've been watching us all along. I'd love to hear your
Mm,
thoughts on, you know, unavailable men, what you're going
yes,
through. You know,
yeah,
throw some questions. We've got a few minutes left, but I just want to share the retreat.
yeah,
So in both of our bios, there's a link. We're doing a
yeah.
retreat in April the 19th to 22nd in Devon, UK. and it's in a beautiful, luxurious villa. More importantly, we're
Amazing.
going to have a lot of fun whilst we heal. You know, both of our retreats are very high vibe. They're very sacred spaces. You can unfold, let everything out, leave it there, get on with your life and brand new energy. But what I really wanted to express is something that I get asked a lot is, what book can I read? What course
Mm.
can I do? What, you know, this is great. You can read as many books as you want, right? And in your mind, you can rationalize it. But you
Yeah.
still might not know how to shift that energy in your physical body or your emotional body,
Mm,
right? So
mm,
Fran's there for the physical body to, you know, like she said, to shift that physiology to feel safe. I'm there for the energetics to, we both do the same thing. Like we heal the inner child, we help with leadership, taking self-responsibility, self-healing, but we do it in a different way.
yeah.
So I work on the energetics of why these things happen in the first place, to heal the trauma, to help you understand why you might be attracting unavailable men, right? Why you put yourself in situations for a long time that do not give you the love, the wealth, the passion that you desire. And I talk about wealth not just financially, but the whole, you know, wealth is a big thing. It's
Mm,
possessions, it's assets, it's feelings, it's behavior, it's everything, everything that can, you know, put together that represents living wealthy and healthy,
healthy.
right? Emotionally,
Yeah.
physically,
Health.
mentally. And most of us are just, I did this for a very long time, as I said before, and I read a lot of books. I read so many books. I never knew how to implement it into my
Mm,
physical body and energetically hold that, right?
yeah. So
And what I
important.
mean by that, and I'll give you a really simple example, is you will see people who do the lottery and win millions of
Yeah.
pounds. They don't
Yeah.
know how to energetically hold that and feel physically safe to hold that, and they will spend it and they will lose it. Yes, part of that is financial unmanageability, but you can learn that, right? You need to take responsibility, taking responsibility, energetically holding that, physically holding that, feeling safe to have that much. That's a really high value. When you win millions of pounds, that's high value.
Mm,
Consider that in your own value and the value you attract in your life in a man. That's still high value. You've got to learn how to retain that. And if you
mm,
if you are triggered by spikes and relationships that aren't fulfilling, and you're chasing that dopamine hit, and rejection makes you work harder, you will never contain, energetically hold deep, deep love or abundance or a growing relationship or wealth. Because remember, when a union comes together of a man and a woman, everything multiplies.
mm,
Everything multiplies. That's why they say behind it, you know, successful man, there's a good woman, a strong woman, or whatever it might be. I don't know what the saying is, but it's because
yeah.
she's magnifying, she's multiplying him. She knows how to do that, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
it's all about how we can radiate in that and invite in more. So please visit our
Mm,
links in bio, have a look at the retreat. If you've got any questions, you can DM us. We're going to go and do this work in a deep space. We're also going to have a lot of fun, because in all my retreats there's been a lot of laughter.
yeah.
Been known for it, but you know, and we make a lot of beautiful relationships as well, and
Yeah.
friendships. So
And beautiful,
uh,
nourishing food as well with the in-house chef.
yeah, nourishing.
Yeah.
So Becky's asked another question. What about if he finds it difficult to receive love? So if he finds it difficult to receive love, he's probably going to find it difficult to receive a lot of things, because love is like the highest version, if you like. So you might want to ask him, what does love mean to him? So it means different things to different people. It might mean acts of service. It might mean physical presence. It might be touch. It might be a lot of different things. So what I will say is, and again, this is going to be controversial. I did not know what pure love was. Well, I knew it when I had my daughter. Okay, but then as she grew up, there were conditions on her. Please don't do that. That's not good for you. Don't go out there. Eat this, and then I'll give you a reward. It was all conditional. Everything was conditional, right? When I met Jack, no matter what I did and what I said, it was unconditional. He humbled me so much about what unconditional love is, right? However, what I will say is most people don't really know what love is because they're either putting controls on conditions on it and then it becomes attachment, right?
Mm,
So we must first understand, what does love mean to each of us, right? For me, love means being seen, acknowledged, held, being in the presence of someone, like really visible in someone's life. Someone's proud of me. That's loving for me, right? Feeling
mm,
safe is loving, right? So what does that mean to the person you're with? Because for some people it might. So when I was growing up, so this is a good example. When I was growing up, I was growing up in a traditional Indian household, and I know, Fran, you've got a kind of similar story. Love for from my parents was provision of basics. Put a roof over your head, putting clothes on your back. You've got money, you've got the basics done. This is our job
mm,
done, right? So their
mm,
version of love was provision of the basics. And actually, to some degree, that is almost a true version of love, because after a certain point we've done our job and the rest is self-mastery, if that makes sense.
mm,
Bit confusing, but we'll get to it. So I grew up thinking, yeah, that's great, but it's your job to provide for me, it's your job to, put a roof over my head, but it's also your job to see me, nurture me, support me, cheerlead me. That wasn't in my parents' generation,
mm,
and I didn't have it for myself, right? So when someone gave me words of affirmation in a relationship, I was like, oh gosh, I feel seen, right? That feels loving. So I don't know, Fran, like, how do you feel about that? If somebody finds it difficult to receive love, like, what would be your advice for that?
Oh, yeah, I can see my babes has just jumped on. Hey, Warren. I Yeah, I think the first of all is awareness. Awareness, like that was a massive block for me. But I didn't know. It was so deeply unconscious. And I remember I went to this like sort of Tony Robbins equivalent, kind of one of those big self-development um sort of camps, and it was in Malaysia. It was meant to be in Europe, but it ended up being in Malaysia. And that was my first experience of realizing how blocked I was to receive love. Because there were some certain exercises that we did where it was about sort of receiving love from the other person, standing opposite somebody and looking into their eyes and just them opening your heart and just I can't even remember, but I just remember bawling my eyes out and being like, oh, this is
Oh,
so overwhelming, and just feeling so much love in the room. Like when we saying goodbye to everybody and we did this closing circle, and it was like you meet everybody in the eyes, and it was so overwhelming for me that I was like, wow, I this is me receiving. I didn't know I didn't know
mm,
how to
mm,
receive. So a lot
mm,
of time we don't know what we don't know until
mm,
we experience that. So it might be kind of having that awareness
mm,
of how do you receive, and starting with the basics. So for me it was
mm.
like, do you receive a compliment? Do you receive help if somebody offers to carry your bag up the tube steps? As long as they don't look too dodgy. And I was always like, no, no, I got it. Like we going, back to, I got this.
I
And
got
so I
this.
think, yeah, I think it's sometimes it's little steps, but perhaps it's bringing an awareness to that. Do you even receive in your life?
Mm,
Where are you not
mm,
receiving? Shining
mm,
shining a light on the blind spot. And so yeah, I think personally for myself, then I became much better at seeing that and seeing
mm,
how I was pushing that away or deflecting it because there's fear.
mm, mm. I think love is it's a really big word that can be interpreted in so many different ways, can't it? And I
Yeah.
think that specifically if you've got a cultural mix, so from our culture, provision is love. Period. That's it. You provide for someone, that's love, right?
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
in with Jack being Scottish, white Scottish, it's completely different. It's really sitting down and listening and having presence and all of those kind of things. So learning what the crossovers are and what that means. And you may, like you said, if you never had it, you don't know what it feels like. So what even
Yeah,
is
yeah.
love? For me,
Like you said,
it's like,
yeah.
what's your translation of love? For me, it is being accepting and unconditional. And there might be things that you really don't like about the other person, but so Jack used to do things and I'd be like, I don't understand what that means or what that is. Can you tell me what's happening when you do that? Right. So the triggers. So I learned to love him by understanding who he was and what his triggers and motives were. And he said,
Mm,
well, when I do this, this is happening. And I said, just explain it to me. So I'm not, because I'm naturally quite a judgy person. I've already formed opinions. My channel's
human
talking to
nature.
me. There's so many things going on at once. Energetically, when I'm reading, there's lots of things happening. And in
Right.
everyday life,
Yeah.
I'll have like two or three voices having a chat, when I'm channeling or having this conversation. So, there's all different types of judgment coming up. So it's really good for me to ask the question of, what does that mean for you? What's happening right now? What do you need right now? You know,
Mm, mm,
do you feel all right? Is it triggering you somehow?
mm,
Right? Because sometimes he would do things and I'd be like, oh, I don't really like that. I don't know what it is. But I didn't take the time to understand. And that's love,
mm,
right?
mm.
So it's like, what is your interpretation of love? And yours might be different from your partner's.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's it, I personally, my belief is unconditional love. So I'm just checking that my laptop's not going to die because then my light will go out. But it's okay. So I personally think that unconditional love you can only have for yourself, because we are, unless we completely remove all judgments and
Mm,
conditions, which I haven't met. Yeah, I don't know many people who do. I believe we can only have it we could only have it for ourselves, and that's part of our human condition, is to learn to have that unconditional love free of judgment for ourselves, because unconditional love, I suppose, means like having being free of all
mm,
judgments for anybody,
mm.
to our partners. And I
Yeah,
I
100%.
put my hand up to say that um yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm sure likewise. But then there's compassionate love. There's conditional love, and then there's compassionate love, and then there's unconditional love, which is like that source energy,
Mm,
universal
yeah.
one, which
Mm,
I haven't mastered. I haven't mastered.
I felt it often when I kind of go into the other realms. I really feel it, and it is really difficult to be in. Honestly,
And if you
with life and everything. Not it's
listen,
really difficult. I mean, what I can say is I have a lot of love for myself where I didn't before. So I know
mm,
that the level, but what I'm astounded by is my mirror, my partner reflects even more back, which is so
mm,
he sees in me what I don't see in me,
oh,
which is really lovely. Then therefore I can go deeper with myself,
yes,
which is
wow, yeah.
also true. Yeah.
You've mastered. I mean, your stories with overcoming some severe illnesses, that's
Mm,
love, isn't it? That's the
mm,
unconditional love, is
mm,
healing
yeah.
the irreversible conditions.
Yeah. So I think we've been going for about an hour. So let's
Yeah,
cut it off there. We'd love to, if you're watching this on replay, obviously the comments won't be there.
yeah,
So please comment.
yeah,
Please share what you're going through. We'd love to hear your stories, your
yeah.
versions.
Questions.
Yeah, questions, all of that. And please go and check out our retreat, Feminine Embodiment, which you can find in both of our links in bios.
Yeah,
I'll put it
it's
in the notes to the.
amazing.
Sorry.
It's going to be amazing. Don't
Yeah,
miss out. We've
it
already,
is.
yeah, we have only a handful of places left.
And energetically, even I can feel that it's going to be amazing for myself. let alone what we're going to bring for the women. Like we always go through a little
We do.
metamorphosis ourselves, right?
The
Um,
initiation has already started a few weeks back. I
yeah,
think I was telling you. That's what happens, isn't it? Once you sign up, once it's like declared that you're doing it, the
yeah,
initiation starts for
yeah.
all of us.
And I will just say, because I've had a few people say, I'm manifesting the money, right? You just said something really good there. I've declared I'm doing it. And so therefore the initiation starts.
Yeah.
And therefore the manifestation of the money comes, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
not I'm not telling anyone to go broke for this, but what I am saying, whether it's this retreat or anything else that you want in life, if you make a decision to commit and it's in true alignment for you, I guarantee you that money just comes in.
That's
So
true.
there's
Yeah.
probably about 4 or 5 women that are saying, I'm manifesting the money. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I jump before I have money. I commit to things before I have money. And do you know what? They get paid off. The money arrives because if it's meant for you, it arrives.
It
And
does.
that is the trust, that's the receiving, that's the surrender, that's the feminine energy. So
Mm.
you can start that from
Yeah.
now, right?
And we've got 222 £222 off, but ending tomorrow, right? 31st. Hang on, what day did we
31st
say?
on
Ending
Wednesday.
ending on Wednesday, so midnight Wednesday. So you can get £222 off till the end of the month. So you've only got 2 days.
Do it. But also, there's the 222 off. You can spread it over 4 payments. Okay, so that's going to help you out. Plus, I'm adding a healing session in there, which is worth 333. Okay, so you're getting a
Amazing.
load of value for this,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
can get healing. Um, you can claim that once it's paid in full. And you can get an hour with me, and I will guarantee you it will blow your socks off. Francesca's got an offering that's coming next month in addition to the price. So for this month, you get me. Next month, Fran is going to throw something in.
Yes.
But honestly, when you take that off, you're only paying like it's not a lot at all. You're paying
Mm,
60% of the price. So
yeah. And also these spaces are transformational. It's not just going to
mm,
be a retreat where you go back, you feel a bit rested. These, the types of retreats that myself and Yasmin run are going to give you like leverage for the next 6 months, 6 to 12 months of ahead of the
mm,
next year of even integration, right? Even like a good six
mm,
months of
mm.
integration, because your physical, emotional, mental, energetic bodies is will transform through being in this container for a few days with us, as experienced facilitators that have walked the path before, so we can help to fast track you. That's
Mm.
why these spaces are important and sacred, because when we hold it together, we're helping to fast track you and I suppose, take the next leap for
Like a
yourself in
quantum
your
leap
life.
forward into a level where you can do more and you'll find it easier to do more. And I mean by do more is attract more purposeful things, more love, more abundance, more wealth. It's how you do one thing is how you do everything, because when you raise the vibration of your physical body, you're in a new level of value, which means you can have a new level of things in your life which are
Mm,
richer.
yeah,
They're so much richer. Honestly, it's amazing, and we're both proof of that, having gone through it. So, I think perhaps it would be really cool to share a bit more of our stories at some point, so that people understand that it does work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
particularly early year stories, because I think that's where it really shows how like it's too polarized. It's a polarity. It's like
Mm,
we were closed down and traumatized in our own way, and now we're just so much freer and open and literally receiving. So
yeah.
every day.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Fran, thank you for joining me this
Beautiful.
evening. Please
Nice.
give Fran a follow and check out the link in bio. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
your presence today. We appreciate you. And yeah,
Any
see you next time. I will
questions?
be
Let us
on.
know. I wish I could
Oh,
see you, but I'm just waving
bless
at the
you.
screen. It's so bizarre.
Bless
I'm
you.
gonna have to deinstall and reinstall it again
Yeah,
and
give
see what happens.
it a go. Tomorrow, I will be live with one of my clients, Diane. And you may have heard me talk about 6-month transformations. She's done it and she's going to tell you exactly how to heal. She's been on both of my last retreats. And partly the retreats have helped and the one-to-one coaching. So we are going to share that.
Oh,
And
cool.
we're going to share her transformational journey. So I'm really looking forward to that. So come join me tomorrow at 3, I think it's about 3:30 tomorrow,
Wow.
GMT. All right,
Amazing.
lots
Thank
of love.
you for homeopathy.
Okay,
Bye.
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 Take care.